What is the difference between being alive and being, well, not dead? Grammarists would probably say that they are the same thing when it comes to context, but perhaps you are looking for a more philosophical perspective that can get us out of our default state of nihilism. Being alive is a natural thing. It is this universal force that causes you to exist for some reason, even if you didn't want to, which dates back from when your father's sperm fertilized the egg of your mother. It is the only word that can casually describe your mere physical existence in this planet, while being not dead, as I would like to define it, is being animately existent and functioning at the same time. It is being alive with a sense of meaning and purpose and survival. Because a lot of people who are breathing right now, and that includes myself on some degree, defines themselves as being dead inside. See, this topic is really sensitive for one to ponder on. I might not even be in the right position to discuss this to anyone, and I became gravely guilty when I started to share my nihilistic views about the world, because then I might affect or even change the philosophy of other people around me, which can either be a good thing or a bad thing. But I also want to emphasize that this kind of rumination about our existence and purpose as humans is inherent. From the very moment when the lights turn on for the very first time, we are bound to the desire of understanding everything around us, as much as our minds can. We are forever condemned to the persistent voices in our heads asking, why the hell are we here? But it's not like it's a bad thing. I can confidently advise that we should forgive ourselves whenever we catch ourselves ruminating about these things, because thinking about life and your existence in general actually makes us sane. At some point. It only becomes a bad thing when it's already merging with your deepest fears and anxiety, and you find yourself in a corner of your room having a crisis about this, which is pretty much the definition of my life. Almost every day, in our default states, when we are not doing anything, our brains devote a ton of energy to find meaning and purpose in our lives. And this rumination actually dates way back in ancient Greece, in the time of Aristotle and Plato. So the idealism of Aristotle and Plato takes its basis on essentialism, which states that everything has an essence before they're even born, or set of attributes that are necessary to define a thing to be a thing that it is. For instance, the essential property of a pencil is graphite, and without the graphite, it won't be considered as pencil anymore. As George Lakoff characterizes it, make a thing what it is, and without which it would not be that kind of thing. For a more relevant example, here is Aristotle's definition of man. Human beings are rational animals. And for him, our rationality is our defining characteristic or essence as human beings. That without our rationality, we won't be considered as humans. And if we are born to be rational, then perhaps a life full of contemplation and curiosity is the kind of life that is the grand cause of human existence. And whether or not we are good at adhering to this essence, it still gives us some kind of purpose because we are born to be a certain thing. But if we will think about it, Aristotle didn't really define what it is to be human in these terms. Like, why do we even need to contemplate anything at all? What exactly is our goal? This paved the way for a new kind of philosophical thinking, and that is the existentialism. Existentialism is a philosophical movement that originated from Soren Kierkegaard, as he considered the person's role of making free choices and how it affects their way of life. Though he didn't use the term existentialism exactly, but it was later popularized by the French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre. Basically, it states that existence precedes essence, meaning it is up to us on how we are going to give our lives meaning. This actually reminds me when Neil deGrasse Tyson said, and I quote, "Many people look for meaning in life, as though it's going to be under a rock or behind a tree." And I'm thinking to myself, you have more power than that. You have the power to create meaning in your life, rather than passively look for it. I know a lot of people who are essentialists, who believe that God has a predetermined purpose for them, and existentialists, who believe that our destiny is up to us. But while there exist people who get to imbue meaning in their lives, There's also a fraction of people who believe in the ultimate meaninglessness of life. This belief is called nihilism, and it's a philosophical view which states that all human values are baseless, that life is meaningless and has no sense of purpose, and that nothing in this world really matters. This can be seen when one asks a simple question as why to any random human action, really, over and over and over again. And eventually, they'll end up upon the cliff of not knowing why. This reminds me of that one episode of John Green's podcast called The Anthropocene Reviewed, where John mentions that his children like to play this game with him. And he'll tell them, for instance, that they need to finish breakfast, and they'll say, why? And John says that it's for their nutrition, and they'll say, why? And this just goes on and on until it ended with his children still asking, why? Nietzsche argues, the highest values devalue themselves. The aim is lacking. And why finds no answer. Human existence in the face of nihilism in its nature can be scary and intimidating. The mere fact that we are not as special as we are just tiny specks of dust relative to the truly unfathomable, infinite vast of time and space. That the stars and moon in the night sky are not necessarily there to provide us light in the dark, to shine specifically for us. They are just the way they are. But there is more than that. Just because we live in a meaningless universe doesn't mean we are doomed, right? Now this is what you call optimistic nihilism. Life has no meaning. So what? If it is, then the concept of death is less scary. All your mortifications and embarrassments and humiliations, for the love of God, won't even matter in the end. If life is the only thing that we are ever get to experience, then that's the only thing that matters. We are given this opportunity to explore this. Sure, we are going to see someday, but we get to love. We get to be curious. We get to read books from our favorite authors and eat street foods with a friend while looking at the night sky. And that's the point. That's the point. We're not just tiny specks of dust. In a greater sense, dust is just as valuable as a black hole. Why am I saying valuable like that? Valuable. Valuable. I'll end this video with a quote from Albert Camus, and I want you to let me know what you think about it in the comments. The literal meaning of life is whatever that prevents you from killing yourself. I'll see you in the next video.